Affiliate myself, the shining star. Standing there like no other.
A Câmara Municipal de Nação foi sequestrada por um grupo de italianos.
Missão europeia é a mesma coisa, não é? Missão europeia
É mais ou menos a mesma coisa. Estás na internet a sequestrar a vice-presidente.
Temos aqui
É na máfia. Isso não sei.
Podemos começar aqui para vocês conversam. Estão lá.
Sim, sim.
Não.
Okay, so good morning. I was wondering, yesterday I asked for everyone to be here a little bit before 9:30. I forgot to say it was to be before 9:30 in Portugal. So tomorrow, a little bit before 9:30 in Portugal, okay? Portuguese time zone. Vamos ter agora duas intervenções que são importantes no contexto aqui do nosso seminário. Tenho ao meu lado a doutora Margarida Lopes, que é Vice-Presidente da Câmara Municipal de Nação e também vereadora na área da cultura, entre outras responsabilidades. E o Dr. Luís Santos, que é meu colega, professor aqui nos programas de mestrado e doutoramento, biólogo, e agora é o meu diretor de departamento, portanto, é o novo diretor do nosso departamento. E eu digo que é um momento importante porque nós, no Afeleia, trabalhamos a questão da gestão territorial, da articulação das comunidades nos territórios. E aquilo que fazemos aqui não seria possível se não tivesse na sua base uma parceria muito forte, que tem já mais de 20 anos, entre o município de Nação e o Instituto Politécnico de Tomar. Estamos todos particularmente gratos à Câmara de Nação pelo apoio que sempre dá. Não é apenas um apoio logístico, é uma questão de visão. Nação é um município que identificou há muitos anos a importância que a ciência e a cultura têm para o desenvolvimento económico e social, que é uma coisa que escapa à compreensão da maior parte das pessoas, que tendem a olhar para as questões da cultura, da educação e da ciência como uma espécie de setor à parte, que é preciso tomar conta dele, é preciso dar-lhe apoio, mas que é uma espécie de subsídio que se dá. Eu penso que Nação é um exemplo de como as coisas integradas têm outra dimensão. Se Nação tem hoje a projeção internacional que tem, deve-o a esta visão que particularmente a Câmara Municipal tem e obviamente a parceria com o Politécnico. Doutora Margarida, fala
bom dia a todos. Antes de mais, deixar um cumprimento do Sr. Presidente da Câmara, que não está presente, está ausente do país em serviço, mas pediu-me para vos transmitir esta mensagem para vos dar uma saudação. De facto, aquilo que o Dr. Osterbeck falou há pouco é verdade. São já 20 anos de idade, 20 anos de muitas parcerias e de crescimento. Obviamente tenho de deixar aqui, em nome da Câmara Municipal de Nação, o agradecer, pois tivéssemos também essa visão. Aliás, se não o tivéssemos connosco nessa visão, também não estamos aqui hoje. Portanto, tem sido um grande dinamizador, não só desta iniciativa, que conta já com 10 anos, uma marca de nação, de facto, já uma marca de nação, já está na agenda de muitos de vós, nesta altura, uma Afeleia em Nação, e vejo aqui caras conhecidas que têm estado aqui no Afleia, mas também muitas iniciativas que a Câmara Municipal de Belém vai desenvolvendo. Portanto, deixo este agradecimento público também ao Dr. Osterbeck por toda esta dinamização. Também não seria possível ou não estaríamos aqui hoje. E, de facto, a Mação tem vindo a desenvolver várias iniciativas, tem estado integrado em várias ações e parcerias, e uma delas que queria realçar é precisamente o facto de sermos uma localidade, um município sem uma instituição de ensino superior, mas aqui serem ministradas as aulas de doutoramento e também de mestrado, o que para nós muito nos apraz e é já um dado adquirido e assimilado pela nossa comunidade. Aqui há uns anos atrás até brincávamos quando víamos pessoas que não conhecíamos, porque somos uma comunidade mais pequena e todos nos conhecemos uns aos outros. Quando chegava alguém que não conhecíamos, a primeira coisa que se dizia era é estudante do museu, está no museu, de certeza que está no mestrado ou no doutoramento no museu. Portanto, desde cedo também houve esta receptividade de Mação aos projetos do museu e a todas estas ações que se foram desenvolvendo. Portanto, deixar aqui também esta referência, o facto, a temática deste ano também tem a ver com as paisagens, com a gestão do território, também o facto de todos aqueles que aqui vêm e participam terem contacto com uma realidade que possivelmente será muito diferente da vossa. Vir a Portugal, para aqueles que vêm de fora, vir a Portugal muitas vezes significa vir só aos centros urbanos, a Lisboa ou ao Porto, mas é diferente vir a Portugal e estar em Mação, porque é uma realidade diferente e poderão confrontar com a vossa realidade e também com outras realidades em que estão envolvidos e que conhecem. E também só realçar outra questão, que é o facto de os trabalhos que vão sendo desenvolvidos aqui pelos investigadores, pelos alunos, focam muito a questão do território, a abordagem que fazem relativamente ao território. Como vêm de outros territórios, vão precisamente, e o professor Osterbeck tem esse cuidado, de os levar às várias freguesias do nosso concelho, para que as explorem, para que falem com as pessoas, para que percebam as suas dinâmicas e a partir daí possam também fazer uma reflexão sobre aquilo que se pode desenvolver ou que se pode aplicar em termos de território e de mudança, eventualmente. Apenas agradecer o facto de estarem aqui hoje, que tenham um bom... Hoje e nestes dias, nos próximos dias, porque são dias intensos de atividade, que sejam dias de muito debate, de muita reflexão. É um programa teórico, mas também bastante prático, com várias oficinas muito interessantes, também com um concerto. Por isso, sejam bem-vindos e deixar novamente um agradecimento ao Dr. Osterbeck, à equipa do museu e também à equipa do ITM e à equipa da biblioteca e do auditório, que vão estar aqui estes dias todos a acompanhar e que também certamente vão levar consigo muito daquilo que se vai falar aqui. Sejam boas reflexões e que depois na prática tenham frutos. Muito obrigada.
Eu falo alto. Bom dia a todos. Eu gostaria de agradecer o convite, em primeira pessoa, ao Dr. Luís Osterbeck, cumprimentar todos os presentes, rever caras conhecidas, quer seja a nível nacional, quer seja a nível internacional, é sempre interessante. E eu, se calhar, falo em inglês para mostrar a diversidade das coisas. So, good morning, everyone. For the ones that understand Portuguese, I'll be able to speak in English. And obviously, this has been, for me is still a path that I followed someone that I admire a lot, which is Professor Osterbeck. I always joke and say he is my academic father. Obviously, I'm a rebel, so you know he knows that. We get along in a lot of things and we disagree in another, but that's what science is all about. So coming here and seeing Afleia still alive after all these years, I'm very proud of this. Afleia is exactly from the beginning, from the concept. Simplicity, primitive, but primitive in a positive way. And it's the old ways. And this is exactly what we need to revive in a very special place such as Massana. Because of, you know, demographic loss, because of the interior problems we have, because of the loss of young people, schools closing, we get our realities inside the country. And this is funny because a lot of friends of mine from all over the world, they say, well, Louis, how far from the beach are you? And I say 63 kilometers. He says, well, you live on the beach. We live 500 kilometers away and we are close to the shoreline. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is geography. So what's happening with Portugal? Because, I mean, Massana is 70 kilometers, 80 kilometers away from the ocean. I mean, Spain is just, you know, 40 kilometers away. So Portugal is actually a country that is not interior. So what's the concept of having an interior of something that is actually shoreline? I mean, I'm a biologist, so I can call it the intertidal area, zone, which we study. But this is funny, and it's very interesting to see how Afleia actually can grasp the diversity and the beauty that exists inside our country and the values, the heritage that is still available, and not only the material but also the immaterial heritage that we need to preserve. And I think this is what Afleia's simplicity is about to bring and continues bringing, from the diversity of scientific areas to the diversity of people which are in this room. And for that we have to thank Professor Osterbeck, and I think he deserves an applause from everybody. Thank you.
This discussion is an interesting discussion about the interior and the shoreline. Last year we were preparing a program for research in Africa. Some of you here in the room know it's a research project on early human occupations in the Western Atlantic shoreline. And there was an endless discussion because some people in the team were saying, but if it's only the shoreline, how can we get some of the countries that we want? And the others of us were saying, yeah, but that's all the shoreline, because the interior Africa is another thing. So until you cross the mountains, you are in the shoreline. So, and in the end, but it was an endless discussion, including with African colleagues, because then there are the regional names, so you can't call it Western Africa, because West Africa is Afrique Occidentale, and so on, or Afrique de l'Ouest. So, but it's interesting, and it relates to what we were talking about yesterday. We act on perceptions. So if people think they are away from the sea, if they think they are from the sea, they will be away from the sea. They will not consider the sea as being a variable. This is the most important thing. Is the Atlantic Ocean a relevant resource for Massal or not? Does Massal have an airport or not? Most people would say in Portugal, no, there is no airport in Massal. Go to Brazil and ask people that live 200, 300 kilometers from an airport if they have an airport nearby. Yes, we do have an airport, it's only 300 kilometers. So this is very important because this is the way strategies are designed. And it's interesting because discussions in the so-called more advanced countries are exactly the territories where these kinds of misleading understanding of what resources are exists. Probably because people got so used to have everything without any effort that they think that the least effort is already too far away. This is why people drive cars inside Macau, including myself. But it's stupid, right? It's stupid to use a car inside Macau. But my car is just outside the door. So, but if I'm in Lisbon, I would never take the car to make the distance from the hotel coming here. Never. I only do that in Lisbon. And if I go to Paris, I don't have the car, so I normally walk 10 kilometers in a day without any problem. So how we understand things is very, very important. I thank very much Luis and Margarida for being here. I must say that it's two people that were, today have responsibilities, but from the very beginning they were very important in this project. Because Margarida was the head of the communication sector she's a journalist, and she was very, very important in the very beginning of the process in building the communication strategy and so on. So, and it's very good to see that people that have had this input have now major responsibilities. So congratulations and thank you. Okay. We are now going
presentations from the rest of the team. We will get some idea about the idea of putting paint onto a canvas to create that imagination that we all think. If I hold 100 pieces of pottery in my hands now, what can I say about society and community, how that community starts? I couldn't. I can weigh it, I can describe it, I can a presentation of what was in these pieces of pottery, but how we paint that past? And the only way really to paint that past is to think about the intangible evidence that we have within the archaeological record. And it's there. It's just that we've got to tease it out. This is where I think archaeology comes in discipline, in that we're on philosophy, ethnography, anthropology, philosophy, all those additional things that feed to a fascinating subject. So I'm very proud to be here today with my team to be talking about those intangible evidences to understand the past, the distant past, the recent past. Thank you very much.
So, I believe if you want to say we'll start, let me what was read because that the technologies are let's start then experimenting analytic by I to share the screen. Let me think. Of course, but I just have to control. Eu não sei se isto está partilhado. Luís, podes dar uma ajuda aqui? Eu fiz.
De cada vez,
Portanto, isto
eu pelo menos faço assim. De cada vez. Para ter a certeza. E depois usamos outra vez. É este?
É este, não.
Está tão pequeno.
Agora tem que ser o Luís, se calhar, ou
Pode ser.
Ah, sim, sim, apresentação da empresa, exatamente.
Aqui tu não vais conseguir.
Sim, sim, sim. Mas eles cumprem, podemos tirar esse. Ok, obrigado.
In prehistory, archaeoacoustic has mostly studied the reception of sound in nature or architecture, to mention only the pioneering studies of Paul Devereaux, Chris Carr, or Yegor Reznikov. In the case of objects, there is an ambiguity as to whether we are dealing with an archaeoacoustic instrument or whether the acoustic properties displayed are incidental to the object normally used, since many objects can produce sound. Only a few prehistoric objects have been identified as archaeoacoustic objects because of their similarity to traditional ones, especially in the two main categories, whistles and drums. It can be said that the bone whistles seem to have been one of the oldest preserved instruments dating from Mousterian. Orignation bone flutes were discovered in several places, like the Hohenfels flute from Germany, which dates earlier than 30,000 years ago, as well as in many other places in the Swabian Jura. Recent ceramic drums or membranones, as named by Kurt Sachs and Eric Hornboster in the Identification of Musical Instrument in 1914, are a type of archaeo instruments identifying the Neolithic, which has been the subject of archaeological experiments with examples collected from Western Europe. And Dr. Fernando Coimbra is one of the experimental researchers on this subject. Prehistoric acoustic ceramic instruments from southern Eastern Europe have not been experimentally analyzed and reproduced so far, and the present papers attempt to be a contribution to this topic. The archaeoacoustic instrument I will discuss today is a chalcolithic vessel from the Vinca tradition, dated 500 to 4500 BC, discovered at Parța in southwestern Romania. It is a complex object, both symbolic and functional, and I will try to reveal its possible acoustic capabilities. The vessel has all the attributes of a container: round shape, the filling hole, suspension handles, and flat bottom. This means it could store liquids. It can be held in the hand in front of the mouth, or it can be hung by the neck with the aid of a rope attached to the two handles. As can be seen, the vessel is anthropomorphic. The front part, having human features, head, mouth, arms, evoking a man shouting with his palms to his mouth. Therefore, it can be analyzed as a symbolic object in relation to acoustics. Understanding such an object requires a multidisciplinary analysis, a combination of ethnoarchaeology and experimental archaeology. To study it, a copy was made as close as possible to the original, with which acoustic experiments were carried out and analogies were sought in various traditions using ceramic acoustic instruments. The experiments were carried out in two stages. The first was the replication of the object, which consisted of the reproduction of its materiality and shape, and the second was the experimentation of possible use from an ergonomic, a kinesthetic, or an auditory point of view. The modeling of the replica of the vase was carried out using a clay paste mixed with sand, just like the original. The reason for using this material was that in the firing process, in a bonfire, the addition of large-grained sand paste attenuates the thermal shock. The bonfire firing was carried out at 600 degrees Celsius, producing a weak tintering of the vessel wall. The application of these procedures has allowed the absorption of some sound frequencies. It should be mentioned that the spheric shape and the materiality of the object are like those of the acoustic vessels known from ancient and medieval architecture, which are Helmholtz resonators for absorbing sounds. A definition of this vessel is as follows. A cavity resonator performs at once as sound absorber for an array of frequencies and as amplifier for the resonance frequency. This type of resonators exists not only in architecture, but also appear in the construction of some ceramic musical instruments, such as the goblet drum djembe, originated from Western Africa, or the ocarina. The Pazza vase would be seen in this perspective as a resonator with two openings. Studying the ethnographic examples of ceramic resonators with two openings, the closest model is that of the Wudu vessels of the Igbo people of Nigeria, which are used as drums. These are stylistically presented in many varied forms, all sharing a resonance chamber and two openings. Supported either by the neck or positioned on a flat surface, the Pazza vessel can function like a Wudu drum, making sound of medium intensity when struck with the palms or fingers, even though the material is not very well sintered. Analyzing the use of a Wudu drum, it's evident that the hand percussion can produce a variety of sounds. Slapping the central hole can produce bass sounds, and hitting the round surface with the fingers can produce higher pitch sounds. Following ethnographic documentation, another hypothesis to determine the function of the object would be that of a howler, a tool to call wild animals. Ethnographic data, such as the fairy of the wolves in the Western Carpathian Mountains or contemporary hunting reports, show that such a technique is still used for calling game, especially for canids, wolves, or jackals. It is only the vibration of the human voice, if only the vibration of the human voice is used, low sounds or high sounds are produced. One can conclude that the texture of the material and the shape of the object alters the human voice to some extent, absorbing the resonance of certain frequencies, acting like a Helmholtz resonator, and allow for the production of intensified sounds near the resonator. This high-pitched sound produced with a ceramic vessel are almost identical, almost identical to the wolf howls. And you can see the human voice and the animal howling. Yeah. No,
To the previous?
Yes.
This one?
Okay. One the last cellular the road and where Tesla discovered was near a monumental deer head on the wall. Therefore, another possible function of the Barca vessel could have been that of a howler used for calling animals, because it is an easy portable object. A scientific hypothesis resulting from the last two experiments is that the object has a human voice and produces sounds similar to the natural one, such as the wolf's howling or the stag's roaring. These two acoustic characteristics are specific to shamanic activity, which is mimetic acoustics, shamanic techniques using alteration of the human voice and imitating sounds from nature and wild animal voices. In both cases, the operator uses both his voice and his breath to produce sounds. This creates an intimate with the performance, the object. Because body and voice. From an animistic perspective, the human voice and breath are an animistic object which alters the sound of the human voice and produces sounds analogous to those in nature. Also, in relation to shamanic activities, the ceramic drum analogous to the voodoo drum. It is known that the drum is a main instrument in shamanic or relationship with the spirits. The spirit is animated by the sound exhalation of the performer. From this moment on, it is no longer a simple extension of the human body, an independent act. The vessel from Parza should therefore be seen from the animistic shamanic perspective of an object that comes to life and communicates sonorously with the surrounding world, and in which the anthropomorphic form is augmented by its own voice, different from the human one, and which also copies sounds from nature. Thank you very much for your attention.
It was a very interesting presentation. We have time for two questions. If there are comments.
I was going to ask one question.
May wait for the micro. We were told to, but if you manage to speak here, I don't want to pull too much the wire. Okay, it's coming. It's arriving. The micro.
Não, aí não se pode puxar mesmo. Desliga-se.
Não convém.
Não, eu estou à espera do
Wait for the
microfone.
micro. It's coming.
Foi para ali para o livro.
Ok.
Se faz favor.
São duas perguntas. Dois
Sim.
links.
Sim.
Você vai
Você
vai
faz
para as
as
duas.
Você fala e eu traduzo.
Ok. Se a busca da perfeição do som era para uma sobrevivência ou se era para uma harmonia musical?
Uma harmonia.
Isso.
So the two questions. The first one, if the quest for a perfect sound is related to survival or for seeking harmony. E a segunda? E a segunda?
Sobre o tipo de material influencia o tipo de que eles
And if the kind of materials used influences the frequency of the sound frequency.
Such kind of experiment, you are not sure that you can find the right material and the right temperature to synthesize the material. So these experiments are some archetypal models. I cannot answer to your question because my research was not focused on this. I wanted only to see if the symbolic shape of the object can have some functional, general functional utilities. Probably the right experiment would have the original, and with the original I could answer to your question directly. So my main goal was to see if there is a symbolic shape and the functional shape. And it was to search some other aspects of this object. I wanted to stay in the quite objective area of research.
I believe that was, you have a question also. Then we have to, no, the micro please.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. It's a very simple one, Dragos. I was dealing with a German student many years ago who was dealing with rock gongs. So these are the very, very smooth rock areas, in particular in north-east Africa, and the sounds coming from them were engendered, they were made mainly by women, but taking the gender away from that, in terms of resonance, have you looked at the natural phenomenon? Because you've talked about the idea of drums and how they are constructed in terms of ceramics. What about the idea of using rock outcropping to create a sound as well? Has that come into your research?
Use rock art in this area.
Yeah.
No, this region is belongs to the clay valued horizon. So rocks are very, very rare. So probably the main sound used in the past was the wooden objects, drums, which are still used today in the Orthodox religion to support people in evening to pray. But in my opinion, all ceramic containers can be used as colors for animals. But we are not sure that we reach the experiment the right internal structure of the original. So I think that in the area of the Varza tradition culture, they use mainly wooden instrument and ceramic instrument to produce sounds.
Thank you. So we'll pass now to the second presentation, which is Dr. George Nash. The Sound of Silence is not Simon Garfunkel. It's making sense, as a subtitle, making sense of how sound and vision were restricted around later prehistoric burial ritual and landscape monuments. Please, I can find your presentation, you know better than me.
Não te esqueças que é
Sim, sim,
preciso sair do
Sim.
compartilhamento e voltar a compartilhar.
Okay, exato. We have to share it on the web.
Okay.
So you must, no, to present it here, presentation.
E só fazes depois de estar a partilhar.
Sim. Okay. Please let me do it.
Okay.
Because this is a procedure.
Lovely. That's come up. That's it.
No, you have to first. Just a minute. Let's go to this one. This is your pen drive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's remove it. I know. Sorry, we have to copy your presentation to this folder. What is? Where is your pen drive? Is this one?
Yeah. Come on, Reg.
Where is
That one there.
this one?
That's my presentation.
Sorry, I made a mistake. Sorry, let's go back again. This one, acoustic.
2024.
Okay. And then
Technical abilities.
technical abilities is actual, ladies and gentlemen, and we have to copy this. Okay, here we are. Then the key. This one, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. But first we have to share this one, put there, and to be sure we and complete compartilhamento. Share again. This is a lot of. Is this one? This one, isn't it? I wonder if this is sharing. Está pausado. O que é que está pausado? Tomar compartilhamento. You are okay. Let's say that you are sharing. So we don't this, and now
Fantastic. We're there. We're fine. Okay. If one want to move this on.
You cannot remove that.
No, but I want to do the next slide.
To the next one.
Okay, lovely. Solid.
Okay, we are perfectly on time.
Okay, I think we're there. Okay. Well, first of all, a bon dia again, and Croeso, if you come from Wales, welcome. For many times, for many years, like I said earlier on, I was influenced heavily by Chris Tilley and his ideas of sensory archaeology, the idea of phenomenology in particular. I took a different strand. I went towards semiotics, so looking for the grammar within the archaeological record, in particular landscape. One other person I want to mention who has had a profound influence on me is Paul Devereux, who really is the father of archaeoacoustics. And in fact, the reasons why I'm sat here today is because of him. And I think most of us who are interested in archaeoacoustics will have at some point come across Paul Devereux, who was thinking about sound and sound in archaeology 30, 40 odd years ago. And sadly, today there are people that use archaeoacoustics who do not recognise the work of Paul Devereux, but they should do really, because really in many respects he was the person who thought of the idea about moving the archaeological record into something which is meaningful and understanding. So what I wanted to talk about today is a group of monuments, and again I'm sorry that I'm not talking about Portuguese monuments, although a lot of the monuments we see in the Neolithic in Portugal relate to what I'm going to be talking about in the next few minutes. And the reason why I've chosen this subject is a subject that I spoke about a year ago in Timișoara in Romania at the conference, and I've updated the data because things have moved on. I've got a project on the go now which is in the middle of Stonehenge, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that a little bit later on. So with that,
Yeah.
that arrow there on my site's terrible.
Yeah.
That's lovely. Okay, so one thing that Paul Devereux and myself were talking about 10 years ago was the idea of a sensory archaeology. So it's the idea of considering not just archaeoacoustics, but the idea of smell, taste, sight, some of the sight, which is what Chris Tilley was talking about, and in particular, for this particular session today, about the idea of sound. I don't like the term archaeoacoustics. I quite like the idea of sound. It means it's more meaningful to everybody in this room. So the sound of what we could have heard during prehistory. And just one interesting point to consider is that, remember, we're all modern humans. So the same needs, greeds and aspirations and sensory feelings we have today would have been felt roughly by people 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years ago. So those sort of ideas of sound are really embedded in Neolithic and earlier archaeological discourse. Now, as I said to you before, that sound is regarded as an intangible archaeology, something you can't see, you can't prove. However, one thing I can say is that it is now being used a lot in archaeological discourse in terms of planning archaeology. So, for example, in 2017, I was working in Namibia, and one of the interesting points there in Namibia was not just to look for the physical archaeology, but was to understand the archaeology within its landscape, and that included sound. So it is not just a British consideration in terms of intangible archaeology, but it's also being recognised elsewhere in the world, which is a good thing. Now, the obvious thing is that sound cannot be viewed, it cannot be uncovered, and it can't be excavated. However, arguably, if you are excavating in musical instruments, it can be. But again, it's just trying to put that into a wider context. And also vision as well is an important point to consider. Again, it's thanks to people like David Clark in the 1960s, Christopher Tilley, Mike Shanks in the 1980s, Ian Hodder. These are all British archaeologists, but I dare say there are Portuguese equivalents who talk about the idea of viewing, the idea of mindset, how we consider the sensory archaeology in this case, a 21st century mindset. So these are very important points. I would also suggest that the sensory functions of sound are within the archaeological record. However, very few people have taken that archaeological record and turned it into something which I really for. The first point I want to make, and I think this is very important, is that knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Even within our modern world, as politicians, as people who are in charge of the clergy, in any religion, you have that knowledge, you have the power. If you give away that knowledge, you give away your power. And this is the most fundamental part of how society in the 21st century, in the world today, works. So, in terms of certainly Western politics, this is a very, very important concern to consider. What is important in terms of archaeology is to understand how these processes, how the knowledge is controlled. and that can be controlled through the sensory perceptions. You know, who hears what, when, and how? Who sees what, when, and how? And the first thing I would like to look at in terms of an understanding is really looking at for example, the social organisation or the religious organisation of a church. Now, this is a picture of a medieval rood screen, which is in an English church. And what we've got there, the rood screen is basically a screen that went across the nave, between the nave and the high altar area. The priest would stand in that central part of that image and chant in Latin, but he would chant in Latin to an audience that were only speaking Old English or Anglo-Saxon, for example. So therefore, the first idea of knowledge is power is language. So if you guys were to talk to me in Portuguese, you have the power, because I don't speak Portuguese. If I was to talk to you in Welsh, I have the power, because none of you in this room speak Welsh. I don't think. Anybody speak Welsh here? Good. Shwmae bach, down. So the point is that the first thing we start to see in terms of understanding the knowledge and power of a society is through sound, the sound of language. So this is very, very important. And so we first see our first tangible evidence in terms of an intangible archaeology is seen within this particular example, the medieval church. And as you can see from this plan here, is that there are parts of the church which are deliberately organised through the architecture to restrict that visual and audible information data from the rest of the audience. So we, the audience, you, the audience here, and us three here, we have a power because we know what we're going to be saying next, and you don't. And this is very important. This is how architecture works. The architecture of the auditorium, the architecture of the church are roughly the same sort of thing. We're elevated higher up because we're more important than you. Or are we? And we can see that very, very clearly at this place here. This is St Paul's Cathedral, which was designed by Christopher Wren in the 17th century, following the Great Fire of London of 1665. It took about 20 years to construct. However, there is one interesting area within that church that has a very famous point of architecture. And it's called the Whispering Gallery. So if you are up, high up, just go back one, if you're high up in that dome and standing in that dome, you can whisper, and the person who is opposite you, maybe 30, 40 meters away, can hear what you're saying. So the architecture, or the architect, has designed that church in such a way that you can talk in a very low voice, but still be heard. And there is the Whispering Gallery there. I urge anybody who goes to London, go to St Paul's Cathedral, go into the Whispering Gallery and experience that sound bite, that sound that you can that carries around the architecture of the building. Now, in terms of the archaeology, and I've already touched on this in the introduction, I call this the magical 5%. And what I'm trying to say here is that as we go further back in time to prehistory, and certainly early prehistory, we're talking at maybe 1% rather than 5% of the material culture in that's what survives the archaeological record. So, for example, if we were talking about the Paleolithic, we would look at a hearth, we would look at a little bit of rock art, maybe. We would look at the environmental considerations, the environmental archaeology, and that would total maybe 1 or 2% of the total material culture. In terms of the Neolithic, which is what I'm concentrating on today, we're looking at maybe 5% of the total material culture. So as archaeologists, we've got to construct a society with a missing 95% of the potential archaeological record. And let's just put this into modern context, in that in all this room here, we understand what everything does. We know what the chairs do, we know what the microphone does, we know what the tables do. However, these things do not survive the archaeological record. So we can account for 100% of the total material culture of the archaeological record. However, when we go back to the Neolithic, we're only looking at 5%, maybe, if we're lucky, of the material culture. So in some in many forms, we're looking at, in terms of a ritual Neolithic, this is between 2000 and 4000 in the European Neolithic, we're looking at the bones without the flesh. The bones are the stone, and I'm afraid, really at the moment, in terms of archaeoacoustics, the bones or the stones don't speak to us just yet. However, the way the stones are arranged give us some indication about the idea of secrecy, the idea of knowledge and power. So, for example, this particular site, this is a site called Beich Wen in North Wales, or North Galles, and the bones, which are the stones, would have had a mound around the chamber. The chamber is in the central part of the picture, and the deceased, the bodies of the dead, will be placed inside that chamber, either disarticulated or as a body whole. And the only people that would know about what that relationship is between the dead and their journey and the site, maybe one or two people within society. Again, having that knowledge is power, is very, very important. So, although we've got a skeleton monument here, the skeleton being the stones that are standing and surviving, there is a lot that can be said about the monument within its landscape, and also, more importantly, the sound that would have come from the monument, both inside and out. And this brings me to a very, very important painting, which was made in 1939 by Alan Sorrell. And now Alan Sorrell was an archaeological artist working for the National Museum in England. And in 1939 we had systematic, good excavation to make sense of the past. In respects, his painting of a site called Tinkinswood, which is near Cardiff in South Wales, really typifies what is going on in Neolithic society. We have the audience, people who are watching the funeral of, or the burial of a comrade or a colleague going into the monument for the first time. Note that the community is on the outside of the monument, not inside the monument. And what is going on inside the monument would be secret. That knowledge is power attitude towards society. So we've got that going in this painting of 1939. We also know that the body is being carried in by a select few of people, a select group of people who would only be the only people who know the chanting and how the stones speak to them, and how they speak to the stones, and how they take their comrade, their person into the monument, and how that person is laid to rest in that monument. So all these things are important. There are interesting barriers, liminal spaces between the outside, the public space, and inside the private space. And the private space is very, very important in terms of keeping this knowledge is power attitude. Now, working with Chris Tilley in 1993, we were looking at a number of monuments in Wales, in Galles, Neolithic monuments, and nearly all of them had very, very similar sort of landscape patterns. And this is just one monument that typifies what we were looking at. And we had in the introduction someone talking about the Atlantic and about the coastline. Well, this is quite interesting because myself and Dr. Sarah Garcia did some work in Ocreza, not too far from here, where we noticed that the rock art was near running water. So as the artist 15,000 years ago or 20,000 years ago was carving the Ocreza horse, for example, he or she would have heard the rapids of the river running past that rock art site. Well, likewise, there is a lot of evidence with the distribution of Neolithic monuments in Wales, in Western Britain, in Ireland, in Brittany, in Portugal, in Spain, where you have water running close by. And at this particular monument, this is a site called Golifiliast, you have, or you can hear, the rapids of the river below that monument. So again, there's a pattern emerging, an intangible pattern emerging, where you can understand what is going on with monument distribution, monument location, by people who have this affinity or this association with the idea of running water. Let's just take running water, the sound of running water, as a metaphor for the idea of life. So the first thing is you can hear it. You maybe not be able to see it, but you can hear the running water from this monument. So therefore you have a dichotomy between death in the monument and life with the running water. It could be the case, if we look at the ethnographic record, whereby the idea of life and death are very, very close together, closely associated. Because this idea of an afterlife, for example, where the spirits of the dead run down the river or run up the river, may have an association. So that idea of acoustics is very, very important. Likewise, another monument, this is a site that I excavated, this is a site called Trelithiant, again, close to running water, but also close to the mountains as well. And again, if you are shouting within that particular part of the landscape, you get echo. So your voice will travel around the valley. And again, we experienced this within this particular monument as well, when we were excavating it in 2019. And then we have the most famous monument of all within this part of Western Britain. This is a site called Pentrefan, and again, it runs close to running water. You can see the sea from this particular monument. So again, there's that association, that audible, visual association between water and the monument itself. And we also must not forget the idea is that the stone which you see directly in front of you in the middle of the picture forms part of an auditorium which would have first of all contained the power of the voice within the the back end of the monument, and also more importantly would have controlled the audience who are watching their comrade or their community being placed in that monument. And this is the famous Tinkinswood monument, whereby Alan Sorrell, the painter that I was talking about earlier on, did his painting, his reconstruction painting. And as you can see there, we have a large facade or entrance for the audience, the community, who would not be allowed probably into the chamber monument, partly because it's too small to house many people. So the chamber would only be frequented or visited by maybe one or two people, plus the dead person who's being buried there. And there's Alan Sorrell's painting again. So just go back one. That's what it looks like today. That's Alan Sorrell's interpretation of what that monument would have looked like 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. And then we come the idea of trying to find a suitable candidate to look at the sound, the audible sound. And myself and Paul Devereux went to Bryn Celli D. This is a passage grave, one of two passage graves, which are on the island of Anglesey, which is in northwest Wales. And it's been reconstructed. However, the chamber and the passage stone alignments have never been interfered with. So when you do take a reading down there, a decibel reading, to understand the sound qualities, the monument is a good candidate for understanding the audible qualities of a particular monument, and also, more importantly, what can be heard inside and what cannot be heard outside. And this is the point of this particular presentation by myself. The other site we've looked at as well is a site called Barchadir Gaz. There is a big but to this monument, is in that the picture you see below the aerial photograph is what it looked like in the early 20th century. And this is now what it looks like from the air.
in the 21st century. So it's been reconstructed. However, there is an audible quality both inside and outside. And the main point is that whatever you're doing inside, however noisy you are, you can shout, you can scream, you can't hear that screaming or shouting outside the monuments. So there's an interesting point. So there's two monuments which are in good reconstruction health for these sort of experiments to take place in Western Britain. And they are starting to tell me that there is a definite audible
pattern emerging between what you can hear outside and what you can hear inside. And this is the inside of the monument as it looks today. Remember that dome of concrete above that capstone would not have been there during prehistory, or certainly history, as we can see with the original photograph taken in 1909 at the lower part of the presentation picture.
And then coming to the Bryn Cathy D, back to the Bryn Cathy D site, we were interested in the noises we could hear from the inside, the outside, and also around the facade area. So this is the passage grave. Remember, it has been reconstructed, but the stonework inside the monument remains the same. So one could argue that the sound that's coming out of this monument is being absorbed into the stonework. And this is what it would look like in 1929 without the mound. So there's what monument with the mound, there's the monument without the mound. So all we've got again is that skeleton, metaphorically speaking, that skeleton of a monument. And this is what it looked like when they removed this stone wall ready for excavation in 1929. So the stonework remains there, and today is now incorporated into a mound. Let's go back to images, incorporated into a mound. And this is where Paul Devereux and myself did our first experiment on looking at the sound. And there's just photographs of the passage leading to the chamber. Again, these have survived. I don't know how they survived, but they survived nonetheless. And there's just one slight caveat interesting story that in 1802, so 200 years ago, the Reverend Skinner, who was a scientist and a priest, he was so frightened to go into that monument because of superstition, he sent in a peasant to go and have a look. And the peasants went into that passage, climbed and crawled into the passage, into the chamber. The sun came through from the west and illuminated the passage, and the peasant thought he saw a ghost and came scrambling out. So that just gives you some idea about how these sites evoke superstition and danger. So there's the chamber area again, and the sun coming in. Again, there's a visual thing going in. This is the winter solstice. The photograph you see on the left-hand side is the shadow which is cast by the sun, and the photograph on the right-hand side is the sun coming through the passage, hitting the back chamber and illuminating the chamber with that square ray of light. Oops. Then we come on to really a most important point, or a most important site, a site called Pen y Wylod, which is in central Wales. And this is where we found the oldest musical instruments in the British Isles. And it's a sheep bone, which is a flute. And this was found in one of the chambers. And again, just gives you some idea about the idea of how sound, musical sound, would have played when the dead are being interred or buried or placed within these side chambers. So again, a very, very important site. It's the only monument we have so far within the British Isles that has yielded a musical instrument. And this is the results of the sound we took from the chamber of Bryn Cathy D, that site which is there. So that's the sound we've got. This is the landscape you see. This is the LiDAR landscape, in fact, showing the ritual qualities. There's a lot going on there. And again, time today will not give me the chance to talk about the various monuments we have there, but take my word for it, it's not just the passage grave that is important within this landscape. There are other monuments as well, which would have had their own sound qualities. So we have to think about the idea of how these sites would have worked. So I'm not going to go into the text here because it's too long to go on, but it is it does give you an idea of the experimentation that we did when we were looking at the audible qualities
of Bryn Celli D. So, and as a result of that, we published the site in Time and Mind, which is a very, very good publication. And now we're going on to Stonehenge, which is again something which is in an embryonic stage in terms of a project. This is a fake Stonehenge in the US, but it gives you some idea about what the site would have looked like during prehistory. And I want to draw your attention to this modern Stonehenge. Is that within the central part of the picture you see, you can't see the central area of Stonehenge. And arguably, a lot of the Stonehenge stones that we see today reflect that possibility that it wasn't just an audible problem of hearing things inside Stonehenge when you're outside Stonehenge, but also seeing as well. So Stonehenge is a place which is
extremely visible and within the landscape, but it does have some interesting points. And I was fortunate
enough to be there in 2014 with Paul Devereux, working on a project which was initially to deal with the bluestones of Stonehenge. And basically what we were looking at was the idea of the bluestones which came from southwest Wales. They were transported over 240 kilometres from their original source to the centre of Stonehenge and then placed at a later date after those large sarsen stones that you can see on the left-hand side of your picture. And my argument or my rationale for this project is basically that once you are outside Stonehenge, so outside the outer circle of Stonehenge,
can you hear the noises or the audibility of what is going on inside Stonehenge? So there's a view of it.
And again, I draw your attention to the centre right section of the picture. This was a picture which was taken in 2017. And quite clearly, what you can see there is that you can't see. You can't see the centre or the central activity that was going on in the middle of Stonehenge during prehistory. So there's a plan of the site as it would have been constructed. So if you look very, very carefully, wherever you are within that sphere outside Stonehenge, you can't see really what is going on inside Stonehenge
unless you approach the site from the northeast. Okay, so that horseshoe shape that you see in the centre of Stonehenge really stops anybody looking inside
that monument unless you are approaching that monument from the northeast. And this is what it looks like today with the reconstruction, and I'm really interested in one particular area. So this is the Landscape and Perception Project, which was organised by Paul Devereux, and what we did was to tap all the bluestones
within Stonehenge to see what their sound qualities were like. And I can't do the sound, but I'm going to
imitate the sound. But when you are tapping the stone, you get that sound coming from it. Because in the 1950s and 1960s, the bluestones were incorporated into concrete. However, if you make the sound in their natural state, you get bing, 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 bing. It echoes like hitting a glass or a metal object. So it's a very, very, very distinct metallic sound from stone. And as I said to you before, the big problem we have with this particular experiment was that the vast majority of the bluestones in Stonehenge, which come from southwest Wales, but there were two which had fallen away from their concrete foundations to reveal quite a unique sound. So, this is what my experiment will be with this particular project, is to identify how much of the sound is being absorbed into not just the bluestones, but also into the sarsen stones as well, these large stones that you see in front of you today. And what I'm interested in more than anything is to be standing outside the monument.
So I'm going to conduct two experiments, one with sound inside the monument, and one with sound outside the monument, and I want to see what the differences are in the intensity of the sound coming from the inside of the monument. So the
project is called the Theatre Performance Project 2024. It will run into 2025. We are collecting a team. It's very, as I said to you before, it's embryonic at the moment. It's still in its embryonic stage, but based on the funding level that we're going to get, we should have a very, very interesting experiment. It's always been my view that every monument, including Stonehenge, would have had a knowledge is power sort of attitude, in that the people who are the elites, who are running society, would not want to let anybody know what was going on inside that monument. And the plethora of stones that we see within Stonehenge
appear to be absorbing the sound. Because when I was down in 2014 with Paul Devereux, I went and vented outside the monument. I could not hear anything at all. So quite clearly, it's not just a visual restriction of access,
it's also an audible restriction of access as well. So, coming to the conclusion, what is going on? Well, the first part of my rationale is
to postulate the idea of how sound travels and how it gets absorbed into stones. Now, I would argue that nearly every Neolithic monument we have within Europe, including Portugal and Spain, applies the same sort of rules. Once you're inside that monument, no one can really hear or see what is going on, or even smell
what is going on. Remember, you are dealing with death. The Landscape and Perception Project, which was organised by Paul Devereux, proved to be a clear link between architecture and sound, which again I think is very, very important. And this is something which I'm going to carry on with the project that I'm going to be doing with Stonehenge. Stonehenge, like many other ritual symbolic monuments, was a socio-political and ritualised theatre of performance. And I think this is an important thing, that sound is a way of performing, transmitting your voice into a sociological and artistic repertoire of sound. And in terms of architecture, really in many respects, Stonehenge offers me, and hopefully the team I'm going to be working with an insight to how people were thinking and how that thought processes were being used to construct a barrier between the elites and the rest of society. The rest of society being outside Stonehenge and the elites being inside Stonehenge. So there I will finish my lecture, and I say obrigado, thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, George. So I suggest that we leave possible questions for the final debate, because we are not very late. We are 5 minutes late, so that's not very bad. But since the next presentation will be online by Paul Devereux, we have 2 tests, one of the teams to check if Paul is online, and to make him co-host, so that will take some minutes. So what do you think?
We can have the break now.
Shall we make the coffee break as a program?
Coffee break now.
Okay.
And resume in 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, 15 to 20 minutes. All right. So thank you very much.
So far,
I couldn't see.
I affiliate myself the shining star. Standing there like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community, come and participate. Celebration won't wait. Protect it up, affiliate. Let's all celebrate. Let me do it together, we'll fly. So far, affiliate myself the shining star. Standing there like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community, come and participate. Celebration won't wait. Protect it up, affiliate. Let's all celebrate. Let me do it together. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. Standing there like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community. Come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up, affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll fly. Oh yeah. An affiliate where dreams come alive. Baby, for success we come so far. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. Standing there like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community. Come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up, affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll fly. Oh yeah. An affiliate where dreams come alive. Baby, for success we come so far. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. Standing there like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community. Come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up, affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll fly. Oh yeah. An affiliate where dreams come alive. Baby, for success we come so far. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. Standing there like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community. Come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up, affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll fly. Oh yeah. An affiliate where dreams come alive. Baby, for success we come so far. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. Standing there like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community. Come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up, affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll fly. Oh yeah. An affiliate where dreams come alive. Baby, for success we come so far. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. Standing there like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community. Come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up, affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll fly. Oh yeah. An affiliate where dreams come alive. Baby, for success we come so far. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. Standing there like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community. Come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up, affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll fly. Oh yeah. An affiliate where dreams come alive. Baby, for success we come so far. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. Standing there like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community. Come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up, affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll fly. Oh yeah. An affiliate where dreams come alive. Baby, for success we come so far. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. Standing there like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community. Come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up, affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. For students, experts in the community, come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up, Affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll thrive. Yeah, at Affiliate where dreams come alive. Hey, for success we've come so far. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. For students, experts in the community, come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up, Affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll thrive. Yeah, at Affiliate where dreams come alive. Hey, for success we've come so far. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. For students, experts in the community, come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up, Affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll thrive. Yeah, at Affiliate where dreams come alive. Hey, for success we've come so far. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. For students, experts in the community, come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up, Affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll thrive. Yeah, at Affiliate where dreams come alive. Hey, for success we've come so far. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. For students, experts in the community, come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up, Affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll thrive. Yeah, at Affiliate where dreams come alive. Hey, for success we've come so far. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. For students, experts in the community, come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up, Affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll thrive. Yeah, at Affiliate where dreams come alive. Hey, for success we've come so far. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. For students, experts in the community, come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up, Affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll thrive. Yeah, at Affiliate where dreams come alive. Hey, for success we've come so far. Affiliate my soul, the shining star. A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. For students, experts in the community, come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey,
Paul,
hey,
can you hear me?
take it up, Affiliate. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll thrive. Yeah, at Affiliate where dreams come alive. Hey, for success we've come so far.
Hello, Paul. Hi.
Affiliate
How
my
are you?
soul, the shining star.
Sorry?
A seminary like no other,
Can
it's
you
clear
hear?
to see. For students, experts in the community, come and participate.
Hi, can you hear?
Celebration won't
Yeah,
wait.
yeah,
Hey,
I
hey,
can hear.
take it up,
But we are now in the coffee
Let's
break.
all celebrate, celebrate. so far.
put music here, and
I
but
feel the
we
aim is
will
on the
send it away in a
shining
couple of
star.
minutes.
A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the
I'm sorry that yes, I
community.
could send you the link to the
Come and
Lord, but
participate. Celebration won't wait.
But I'm
Hey,
glad
hey, take it up our
that
freedom. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing going together, we'll fly.
Give me
Another year where dreams come alive.
so
Hey, success
please
we
stay online.
come so far.
About five minutes.
I feel the aim is on the shining star. A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community. Come and participate. Celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up our freedom. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing going together, we'll fly. Another year where dreams come alive. Hey, success we come so far.
And I had another one.
I feel the aim is on the shining star. A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community.
And
Come and
they're lined,
participate.
so they're nice and cold
Celebration
weather.
won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up our freedom. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing going together, we'll fly. Another year where dreams come alive. Hey, for success we come so far. I feel the aim is on the shining star. A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community. Come and participate. Celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up our freedom. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing going together, we'll fly. Another year where dreams come alive. Hey, for success we come so far. I feel the aim is on the shining star. A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community. Come and participate. Celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up our freedom. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing going together, we'll fly. Another year where dreams come alive. Hey, for success we come so far. I feel the aim is on the shining star. A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community. Come and participate. Celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up our freedom. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing going together, we'll fly. Another year where dreams come alive. Hey, for success we come so far. I feel the aim is on the shining star. A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community. Come and participate. Celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up our freedom. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing going together, we'll fly. Another year where dreams come alive. Hey, for success we come so far. I feel the aim is on the shining star. A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community. Come and participate. Celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up our freedom. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing going together, we'll fly. Another year where dreams come alive. Hey, for success we come so far. I feel the aim is on the shining star. A seminary like no other, it's clear to see. The students, experts in the community. Come and participate. Celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up our freedom. far. I feel the aim is on the shining star. Standing there like no other, it's clear to see the students, experts in the community. Come and participate, the celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up off the leader. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll fly. And after the year where dreams come alive. There's a success, we've come so far.
Good morning,
I feel the aim is on the shining star. Standing there like no other, it's clear to see the students, experts in the community.
Can you hear me?
Come and participate, the celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up off the leader. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Nothing only together we'll fly. And after the year where dreams come alive.
Oh, right, yeah.
There's a success, we've come so far.
Nice to meet.
I feel the aim is on the shining star. Standing there like no other, it's clear to see the students, experts in the community. Come and participate. Celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up off the leader. Let's all celebrate.
Shall I do that now?
Celebrate. Nothing only together we'll fly.
So I can see if everything is okay.
Yeah, yeah, hit that. Bring up your. Where is it?
Hold on, it's gone.
Oh, God. What did you?
Deixa falar com o microfone.
Where's your, go to PowerPoint, go to PowerPoint,
Can you share?
and, yeah, we're just,
Just finding it, I thought it was here.
hang on,
Okay, no problem, no problem.
No, it's not there, it's not there.
well, where did you put it?
I thought it was on
I told you
here.
to bring it
No,
up,
that's-
it's the same
I did.
as, okay. Now, go back down to Zoom, go back down to the Zoom. Hit Zoom.
Yeah, oh, I can see it. There we are.
Okay, now,
Yeah.
hit that. Hit it, just once, click it in the corner there. And then hit share.
What?
Okay. Can you see it, the presentation?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, now do what you want to bring it up full screen.
Mm.
Yeah, full screen. Yeah. Perfect. It's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay. Fernando Coimbra will be here soon, so you can start, okay?
Yeah. So now?
No, no.
No, in a minute, yeah. What about the
Is that okay?
sound?
Well, I don't know, Paul, was it not?
Well, like we
clicked
did it
again?
before, you know.
Well, presumably it was clicked on the thing, I don't know, you do things so quick, and then you don't let me.
No, I don't do things quickly. It's just I thought it'd be like last time.
Nothing you can do now. Well, I guess you can move forward, well, we don't know, because we can only hear it on this end, we can't hear it on the other end. I mean, as long as you didn't unclick the thing,
Didn't unclick it, mm.
should still be there, I didn't look.
I can go back to make it smaller briefly, so you
All
can
right,
see.
go ahead. Download account. You obviously don't know what you're doing, so I wouldn't mess with it.
I'm just trying to get it, I know exactly what I want to do. And it should get it back just
Yeah, I
before,
know what you're saying.
and then you can see the other things.
No, you all get.
Can I just test the sound? Because the sound on the PowerPoint is different to this sound, okay?
Yeah. And also, Paul, your sound is coming over very well.
Oh, good. Well, let's just see if we can get the rock sounds. I just want to test one. Oh, okay. Hold on.
Okay, there you go. Tell me if you can hear this sound. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, you can hear that.
Heard that.
Can you hear that?
Can you hear that?
No.
Okay. All right, he's gonna have to go out again to get the presentation. Stop sharing your screen. Click on.
Where would the sound be?
I don't know. Go back to the your PowerPoint that you did last time.
This.
No, you're on Zoom. How you did it when we sorted out the
It was
sound?
along here. It was along all the green. And then it said sound forward.
All right. So hit share, then hit it along there. That doesn't make
Well, it was.
Hit the view full screen then. Full screen. Okay, now hit the share again.
It should be the
Just
sound.
hit the share again. It's not going to be there. It's going to be on the thing itself.
Share sound. Here.
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
In your own time.
Hang on, we're doing it. Now click that. And now click share. Okay, now see if you can
See if you can hear this.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, good. All right, now you can stop it. Go back to the Okay.
Lovely.
Shall we start?
We'll start. I'll introduce you Paul first. Okay. Well, welcome back everybody to the second session of this, I think, very important session for this particular conference. As you may have been, hope you were listening to me, but I was talking about my colleague Paul Devereux from the UK, and he's obviously coming to talk to you now about his work with archaeoacoustics. As I said to you in the lecture, he is really the father of archaeoacoustics. Really, he was saying things about sound before anybody else.
I'm aware. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Paul Devereux, who will be talking about seeing sound, visual clues for the presence of archaeoacoustics. Paul, over to you, sir.
Thank you, George. Yes, I'm sorry I can't be with you all today. Various circumstances prevent me from being
Sunny Portugal. Anyway, it's just a very short, brief presentation. I just thought we'd look at something from a different perspective when we're dealing with sound, is seeing sound. What are the visual clues for the presence of archaeoacoustics, as George has just stated? We'll just look at a few examples of the possibility of the visual notations, significations that ancient people may have left us. Let's take cut marks for a start. They are pretty prevalent everywhere. We don't know what they are. People have theories. My idea is that they are different, but they indicate different things. But I think in some cases they can signify the presence of sound. And it's the way people made the place, the rock, the site, whatever it is, a little special. It's got sound. Let's see. I'll take one example. Bryn Cathy D in Anglesey in Wales. It's a Neolithic burial chamber. It is astronomically aligned, and George has done work around it, which has indicated that it has a ritual landscape surrounding it. I won't get into all that. But what I do when I get to a site, one that I'm not familiar with or never seen before, never been at, I usually clap my hands. What's he doing? I clap my hands to see if there are any echoes, any acoustic response from the site. And I did that here. And that's a trace of the, there's the hand clap, the big cluster of points. But there was a sharp echo that responded. And it's so distinctive, and it came from the landscape around Bryn Celli D, again around the monument. And I looked around, and this was the culprit. This is the natural outcrop, and it was this broad surface that was giving this very clear, distinct echo. And I thought, well, that must have been very noticeable to the people who used or built the monument, and probably was more significant before the monument was built. And then George, who'd been obviously studying around here, pointed out to me that it had cut marks on it. And why do you put cut marks on a natural outcrop? Well, the only thing I could think of was it signified that this rock produced sound. And we must remember that sound to ancient ears is different to our interpretation of sound today. And to ancient people, sound often was spirits calling or some other spiritual significance, and may have been the cause of the monument being built in the first place, who knows. Anyway, so natural outcrop with cut marks. There are more than these, but these are the three we're photographing here on the outcrop. So this reinforced my suspicion that the sound from this outcrop was already noted as significant, as a signifier. We then went on. George said, well, there are others around here that have echoes from outcrops, and we went to, what is this site, George?
It's called Cist Cerrig.
Right. So Cist Cerrig. And again, if you clap your hands near this, echoes come back there, and they come back multifold because there are things that echo back and reflect the sound. There's, for example, over here, there's a stone wall. There are also fences, and they all gave their little echoes. But in the days before those things existed, there was this natural outcrop again. And as George is pointing out there, it's also got cut marks on it. Excuse me. And in fact, that one looks like a percussion mark to me, this bigger one. So what I'm suggesting is that perhaps on natural features, if you find cut marks and they're in situ, the rock is whatever's still in situ, around a monument, check it for distinct echoes and sounds, because I think sometimes the cut marks are saying this rock speaks. An echo stone that really echoes is this one, the Balafetris Ringing Rock in Tiree. It's on an island of Tiree just off the west coast of Scotland. And it's not natural to the island, this rock. We assume it was carried there by the Ice Age and deposited. It's covered in cut marks and covered in these large ones, which are percussion marks. But there are at least 53 all around that rock. Local archaeologists argue that they were cut marks originally and aided and abetted or enlarged
by the use of percussion with little rocks, little pebbles or whatever. It just, there we are, and I'll Now, a big rock hit by a little rock shouldn't sound like that. It should be just a clunky sound. And so ringing rocks definitely have a property that makes them ring, become resonant. They used to be called rock gongs. Anyway, this rock, not native to the island, it rings and has been known to ring for generations, centuries, maybe even millennia, which is what I suggest. Here, near the rock, there's a placard that has this imaginative drawing on it, presumably a motley crew of Iron Age or Stone Age people who were carrying out a ritual around the stone. And that must have been the case, in fact, because of the use this rock has had. So we don't know if these are just percussion marks, the little ones. These certainly are, but they may have been cut marks that have been enhanced by percussion over centuries. We don't know, but the clear association, signification of cut markings and musical resonant stones is pretty clear in these cases. If we go elsewhere to the Preseli Hills in South Wales, this ridge you see in the sunlight there is Carn Menyn, and it's from the outcrops there that and around that the blue stones of Stonehenge were quarried. And they were originally put together into a circle here, onto a stone circle, actually in Preseli. But eventually they found their way to Stonehenge, which is about 180 kilometers away. Now, place names, traditional place names, are always worth taking notice of because it might tell you more than just the place. Bernard Fagg was a researcher, and in the 1950s he noticed there was a lot of rock gongs on Preseli. And he was alerted to this because he spent a lot of time in Nigeria, where ringing rocks, the striking of the rocks, produced sounds, and they were used ritually and were well known, and all over many parts of Africa, in fact, they were, and in some cases still are used as ritual items. Mein Cochoch is Welsh for ringing rock, bellstone. It's got a number of interpretations, but they all mean the same thing, basically. They were aware, these people who named it, were aware that the Preseli area they were in had ringing rocks. So a few years ago, in conjunction with the Royal College of Art, my colleague John Wozencroft is there, and I organised a series of expeditions to Preseli, and we tested the rocks there in an organised fashion, hundreds and hundreds of them. And the upshot was that at least 10% generally were ringing rocks. And in some places there were 17, 18% of them were ringing rocks. In this case here, I was doing a night shift,
because it's quieter then, you can hear the stones ringing. But the stone I'm striking is a fallen menhir, fallen standing stone, that marked I presume, a sacred spring. It's dried up now, but a spring was encased in rocks that are arranged around it, and this was one of them, and it fell over. But the interesting thing about it is it has cut marks on it, and it was about the 7 that we counted. You can see 3 clearly there, and it is a ringing rock. But as I say, it's a fallen now. Nobody who made those cut marks could be unaware that it rang, that it produced sound. Now, in Aberdeenshire, in Scotland, there are about 80 to 100 stone circles that are Neolithic, and at least 2 of them have been said to be produce sound when struck. But nobody's done any conscious testing of that, and they're in a pretty sad state now, most of those circles. But with one that does produce sound, I noticed they call recumbent stone circles because they have a big stone like an altar that has been placed in the periphery of the ring. And this stone here, I think it's the, can't really remember, but I think it's the Berry Bray stone circle, more or less overlooking the airport at Aberdeen. And then I had a close look at some of the stones, and this one clearly has cut marks on it. And nobody had ever remarked on that before, so I think it might be that sort of signification again with cut marks, I don't know. But anyway, I do feel that we need to look at cut marks as sound signifiers more closely and try and get some coherent picture of that association, if there is any. Then decoration, broad term I'm using, some are elaborate, some are not, but markings, things that make a stone row or a stone circle or a site generally significant in some way. A few examples. Stalactites in Paleolithic marked caves in France and Spain can be very musical. Lightly touched sometimes will produce harp-like sounds or little bell-like sounds. These here are in the Kunat cave, but it was a priest in the 1960s, Father Glory, marvellous name, Father Glory, had made a note of this, but was his work was followed up in much more detail by the Dutch archaeologist Leah Dams, and she studied caves in France and Paleolithic caves much more widely than Father Glory in France and Spain. In Spain, she studied the Nerja cave, which is near Malaga, famous cave, and it's got a calcite deposit they call the organ, multiple folds in the feature, and it's difficult to access, but Dams did that and noticed prehistoric footholds that prehistoric artists had used to mark some of the folds in the feature, and these are some of the markings she made. You can see some of these things look like notation almost, but it's musical. The calcite is musical. The folds are musical, and again, the last one I know has made a thorough, organised and reported survey of this, but there's a lot more to be done. Moving half a world away to California, I've done a lot of work over there, and we visited this Vision Quest site, very near the, it's in Southern California, very near the border with Mexico. And it's a Vision Quest site, and the Vision Quest site, I'm sure you all know, is a place that Native American braves, if you like, would go meditate or gain their credibility as shamans or whatever, and perhaps fast for 2-3 days, maybe even go without water for that length of time, and put them into a rather visionary state. And there's the Vision Quest site is marked out here at Zion Wash. Very subtle ring of rocks, very subtle. And in the center, or near the center, is this slab, and it's got marking on it of some being, and it's got a horn, apparently, pointing to this edge. And that edge, if you hit it, produces a very distinctive ringing sound from this rock. Hopefully. Oh, hold on. You have to keep in line. Now, there's a wide belief in ancient Native America that rocks that rang or made sounds or echoed had spirits in them. And this obviously is a depiction of a spirit. The local archaeologist there says it was about 500 AD, that marking, roughly. And the shaman would go into trance, sometimes taking psychedelic liquids, natural ones, and would enter the rock to gain knowledge from the rock's spirits, and he'd come out more holy than he went in. But there's a distinct ringing rock. It had ritual significance, and we found ritually significant ringing rocks throughout the Americas. And not only little rocks, but great big rocks. This is the Mazenor Rock in Mazenor Lake in Bon Echo Provincial Park, Ontario, Canada. It's a very deep lake, and this is actually on a fault. It's part of a faulting, and it's about 100 feet tall. And it's in Bon Echo Park, so named because this cliff, if you like, gives distinctive, very noticeable echoes. And it's usually iced over in the winter, but in the summer they send boat trips down here with tourists so that they can make sounds and hear their voices echoed back and so forth. And the base, along the base of that rock, are 1,000-year-old markings, some abstract, some figurative, particularly one figure, a jackrabbit, Nanabush, which had, again, spiritual connotations. Sometimes there are depictions of canoes with little figures in them, and they are widely interpreted as being spirit canoes full of spirits. Anyway, we went along there and tested the echoes, and they are strong where the echoes are strongest. So clearly decorative factor, meaningful, not just decoration to the people that use them, to the Native Americans who lived there. You could easily go by. When we were doing this work, people went by, Canadians went by and said, "What are you doing?" And we said, we're looking at the rock art, and they hadn't seen it. They couldn't see it because it's very faint, but there's a lot of them. So again, keep your eyes open. Elsewhere in Canada, in Ontario, Petroglyph Rock. Now, this is a sloping slab of metamorphosed marble, and there are several of them in the area. They're all blank, there's nothing on them, but this one has nearly 100 markings carved on it, which made us think, well, got to be something special about this rock. What is it? And nobody seemed to know. Various suggestions of astronomical alignments, well, forget it. What we thought was, is there a sound element here? And the warden, the lady warden there said, well, what she could think of was this crack, this crevasse cutting across the slab. And she said it's about 5 meters deep. And every so often, groundwater will run along the bottom of it and produces a sound like whispering voices. And we thought, there's the sound. And therefore, if you've got your whispering voices, you've got an oracle site. And I think these are the markings from gatherings. Later, when I published about this, an Indian elder contacted me all the way across to Britain and said, yes, you're right, we knew this, but nobody else has ever mentioned it. So I'm mentioning it to you now. Now, a couple of things about the markings. There's a sort of little zigzag snake-like pattern here, and that's a sure sign of a shaman. And when they go into trance and go through a crack or crevasse in a rock surface to get their rock honours and come back out from the rock spirits, in spirit, of course, in out-of-body experience. This is another sure sign of the shaman, this halo type thing coming out of the head of the this figure here. I don't know what all the others are, but they all have their own, or had their own meaning. The Indians still hold a session on that rock. They're the only people allowed on its surface once a year. And I was invited to go, but it was a long way to go by the time they told me. Anyway, the Definite Rock and Sound Association, Oracle. And here's a big one. Newgrange in Ireland. There's the entrance stone, carved spirals, triple spirals, and so on, and also a straight line indicating the alignment through the entrance passage. And every midwinter morning, the sun rises, if it does, and shines a beam of light down the 62 foot, how many meters that is, passageway. Midwinter sunrise goes along, the ground rises here. So by the time the sunbeam hits the central chamber, it's just a pencil of light. This radiates around. It takes about 17 minutes to move around the floor of the chamber and lighting up the surrounding rocks like ingots of copper. Now, there's a lot of rock art inside Newgrange, and this particular slab is just where the passageway comes into the chamber, and you see there's a lot of zigzag lines, and this is speculation, but it's good speculation. We map the sound coming down with instruments coming down the passageway, and there are peaks and troughs of the sound wave. Same number of peaks and troughs of this zigzag pattern, if you like. And we wondered, could they have seen somehow the sound waves and mark them on the slabs. Now, inside the chamber, there are a couple of these big dishes. They are presumed, they are said by mainstream archaeologists, as it were, to put bones of the dead. Well, that might be true, and it might later have been true, but I think what they were originally used for was water, and putting hot rocks in them, like, steam lodgers, which we know there were some in Ireland, in Iron Age Ireland, and maybe they started earlier. So producing steam. However, we know that I need to go back, I forgot to mention this. There's a roof box above the passage entrance, got its own rock art there. And it's through there that the sunbeam actually comes.
5 minutes.
We know it was filled with blocks of quartz, which were moved because it got scratches on the thing. It was clearly used, and if there were officiants, priests, or whatever in there intoning how's my time? Am I running over?
5 minutes, Paul.
We've got 5 minutes?
Yes.
Just enough. If they were intoning a chant, the sound would move the molecules of whether it was smoke of an incense or steam. How could they see it? Well, it should move the molecules in the water or the smoke to a certain degree. And we wanted to prove if that could have happened. So we produced back at Princeton, we produced a Kunsttube with a sound generator at one end and a light beam at the other. We laid mushroom spores along the bottom, very fine mushroom spores, and it was completely airtight. And it's just the sound pulsing through. When it got to the resonant frequency, the spores rose by the power of the sound waves and displayed themselves. Because that's a view of the side of the thing. So they could have seen. It would have been like black snake-like patterns. So it's speculation, but it could have happened. And finally, work we did at Helsov Fellini Hypogeum in Malta. I'll have to shoot through this. It's a very, as most of you probably know, it's a very resonant 3 stories, subterranean 3 stories. We recorded the sounds, and there's echoes, sounds, resonance everywhere. And it was used as a charnel house partially, but also ritual little statues and so on. But what caught my eye when we went in there was, this is obviously a very old photograph, was the ceiling decoration. And it's always been dismissed up until that point. It's called the Oracle Room. It's called an Oracle Room because there's a recess here, and when you speak into it, it resonates throughout the whole monument structure. And everybody said, well, that's purely coincidence because everything resonates there. And this is just a Neolithic painting of a tree or whatever. Well, it's more than that. Ancient peoples around the world depicted sound visually in spiralic form. They do spirals or spiralic forms. Let's leave it at that. And there it is. This is where you go in here. There's the acoustic aperture. And this is the ceiling above. And there's something you'll notice, apart from the spirals, the growing things, as it's sacred tree or something. this is what they say, nobody noticed that it stops dead on this acoustic niche. And there's that line there. And the fruit, these things, these circles, get bigger and bigger and bigger as they approached the niche. And I reckon that was really depicting sound, what I call the oracle room. And I think it was acoustic notation basically. So these were telling you about sound getting louder, perhaps more distinctive. Well, did something people have spoken in there, shouted into that. The other thing we should do is look into it, because those fruit got into the niche. The sound, that's the sound, that's connection. And nobody had marked that out before, nobody'd seen that, made the connections. 2,500 years, and we published, and now it's pretty well recognized. So it's fruity. I just end by saying this is obviously very brief and sketchy, but if you want to read more with all the references and all the rest, you could try and get hold of this. This is available from Amazon on whatever, all the online bookstores, and there's a big section on sound that I've done that brings things up to date and references. So if you want to find out more organized and coherent fashion, you can read it up there. But 23 years ago, I published this, and we researched for it earlier. We made the first English language book on it anyway, on sound, the acoustic archaeology of ancient sites. Now, because of the wretched Brexit, we can't send books to continental Europe without a heavy surcharge. We do have some of these still in my website, which I'll give you, because I haven't put it on. But we have them, we can send them, but they are more expensive than they should be because it has to go. But you can still get, we think some...
We can't send them from here. It has to be
We can't send them from here, no. Which is a real pity. Because that has the original stuff, very simple. It actually preceded some of the other stuff that's come out later. Anyway, that's just the point. So if you want a more coherent presentation, read it, a lot of illustrations as well. I urge you to get it, not because it's my book, just because it's got this stuff in it. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you.
Thanks, Paul. I'm happy to be your mule, your Brexit mule. I'll bring some copies over with me. Next time I see you.
Right on, man.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Paul. I know you have an appointment in the dentist, so we don't keep.
Not the dentist, the doctors.
The doctor. Okay, right. Thank you very much again. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care. Take care, Paul.
See you later.
We're just looking at the programme, ladies and gentlemen, and if it's all right with Rufus, can you continue after lunch? Sure. Because people will fall asleep then.
No, I'll have to keep them awake.
Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to introduce Professor Fernando Coimbra, who's going to be talking about
Historic apogee of Quinta do Anjo and Carenque, Portugal. By
which is an acoustic engineer, and by myself, which I'm an archaeologist. So it has been very fruitful field work, and now we'll give you some details. In terms of By the way, if anybody wants to get hold of the things that was let me know. Next time I see Paul, I'll get the books and bring them over to Portugal. But that's actually how it's ridiculous sweating so.
So to control the time, not just now. So we have a different, we have a pré-presentation. Como é que começa isto? É que já fiz compartilhar. Tem que sair para lá então, interromper. Sim, interromper. Compartilhar outra vez. Organizar. Aqui. Tem. Pudeste ter uma organizar a vida? Não, isso eu não sei fazer. Eu acho que aqui várias pessoas é eu a tratar das partes informáticas. Tenho ali o Vítor a morrer a rir. Olha aqui, compartilhar som, otimizar para vídeo. E agora é qual? É essa, não tens o certo, exatamente.
É esta?
Não, peraí. Esta já está aberta.
Isto será a mesma coisa?
É mesmo coisa.
Isto é um PowerPoint.
É um PowerPoint, é.
Estou à espera do meu certificado de pós-graduação em informática.
Next faz agora. Okay. No, okay, so this was a pre-presentation to introduce you to one of the sites. So for those of you that come from outside Europe, so the map of Portugal, and in the enlarged map you can see the places where you can see the mouse here. So we work on two archaeological sites. The Quinta do Anjo, which is here in the red dot, and the Carenque is here where I'm pointing. So, but after all, what is an hypogeme? An hypogeme is a collective funerary monument excavated on soft limestone. As you can see, it has a narrow entrance, has a corridor here before that, such as in some dolmen. But despite this narrow entrance, it's possible to be standing inside the monument. which has in Quinta do Anjo there were, this is an old drawing from 1907. There were 4 examples of them, and unfortunately cave 3 and 4 were destroyed by the construction of a road. So far we have cave 1 and 2, which are very well preserved, but also we can ask when were they built? So they started to be built in the late Neolithic, and they have an occupation, a lot of occupation during the Copper Age. And some of the grave goods lead to think about the cult to the ancestors, as for example the schist blocks that you can see in the right with decorations. These are considered to be amulets for the trip in the afterlife to the unknown. And there were also some lunar cults, as you can see in the crescent moon, the other image, which has some parallels in other monuments in the south of Portugal. And some of these moon representations are depicted also in some menhirs from Alentejo. More examples of goods found in the monuments of Quinta do Anjo, for example, from the Belbica culture, this very beautiful vessel decorated with incised lines, and on the right of the image you can see only a small piece with the schematic deer inside the pottery. But the test started in June of before the coronavirus pandemic in 2019, with applying to reproductions of late Neolithic or Copper Age ceramic drums that were produced in Romania by my good colleague, friend, Professor Dragos Georgiou. As you can see, those drums in the image here is a short video available on the internet. The name is Sounds of Copper Age. It's about 3 minutes of the first tests that were made here with another team. I was explaining, for example, this drum that I will show in the afternoon has a different typology of the other one that I didn't bring. I brought a better one that is sounds louder. And here is a plan, is an old drawing, a plan of cave 1 of Quinta do Anjo. It has a corridor, has a circular chamber that produces a clear resonance inside. When, for example, when you speak, if you chant, or if you play a flute or a drum, the chamber, since it's kind of half a sphere, it resonates clearly. And playing drums, as we did, the photo, the images for tests made later in February of 2020, just before the pandemic arriving to Portugal. And a video of this testing was presented last year in Afleia. The movie maker still didn't finish the movie because he is a perfectionist. He wants always to add something more. But the video is going to be, the movie is going to be very good because it also invited other persons. So as you can see, I have my eyes closed because this creates a deep mental body relaxation. We can discuss, for example, in the debate or whenever you want. For example, my colleagues presented very important things to be discussed, Professor Dragos and Professor George Nash, and all their contributions bring a very large field of discussion of very important inputs for archaeology. So again, and I stress on this circular chamber is responsible for creating a sense of deep relaxation, mental and body. For example, Sufi professor and musician Azar Khan from India, in 1927, he argued that percussion may cause ecstasy in a human being because the sound of the drums has a direct focus in the human nervous system, more than other instruments, bringing it to a certain frequency. Furthermore, anthropologist Robin Needham from UK, he published this on a very interesting article in 1967 called Percussion and Tradition. he argued that there is no doubt that sound waves have neural and organic effects on human beings. And then the reverberations produced by musical instruments thus have not only aesthetic but also bodily effects. This is very important, and many people that publish in archaeoacoustics often forget this input of Rodney Needham. I'm almost finishing, and then my colleague will continue. So the audiovisual documentary that I mentioned started in February of 2020. This is the movie maker on the right, helped by a cameraman. We made recordings. We didn't make frequencies. That now I have the luck of meeting Dr. Ari Carvalho, which is acoustic engineer, as mentioned. And for archaeoacoustics, it's very important to have an archaeologist and acoustic engineer besides other people, other experts. Otherwise, without an archaeologist, we don't know the social context of past societies. Without an acoustic engineer, we cannot measure frequencies and other acoustic phenomena that only acoustic engineer can understand. And so I pass the word now to my colleague. This is
Quinta do Anjo, and we did the first study here in two caves to hypogeums. This is the surroundings, the environment surrounding the place.
Sound with the soundscape also.
About the treatments that was needed and the software. The study has some necessity, like the power to run notification and second one the internet. One of the software the first thing was to get the power. The thing was to get the power bank. Enough to work with 220 volts power. And we got with the solar panel. In any case, we can get power and we can keep it running. The second equipment is the microphone, measurement microphone. It has to be omnidirectional microphone, 360, and is the most linear kind of microphone that there are. So they are very precise. As you can see the graphic on the right side of the image. The next is the Haugen count. This is a professional audio. It's composed max. It has two microphone pins and three outputs. The two of them will be to speak with loudspeakers, and just one will be used for the microphone. They microphone as possible. And on the recording to be the more precise as possible. The power of the drone, this is the power, the energy power. They will only run with 230 volts energy. Those were the loudspeakers. These loudspeakers are they don't cover the full spectrum of audio, the human audio sensibility from 20,000 hertz, but they cover a very good spectrum, and in this case they are portable, as portable as possible. Quite happy. And you can see in those graphics the quite linear, but we can use this curve to compensate afterwards the recording, the registration of the acoustic measurement that we are doing. They also need power because they are energy shy. This was a computer. This is what is one. The computer that we must have to be the most secure in the for the and stable for the use of the software. This was the first software tried to use. The JROC is one of the most known between colleagues in professional audio measurements for rural acoustics environment and correction. But the problem is that we connected to the internet to run. We tried to connect it through mobile phone, the internet or phone, but the line wasn't stable enough to be doing the work. So we optionally got a second software that is the Ryu. Ryu is the anagram for room IQ wizard. We use this software to do the testings in the we have optionally but we have two options to do the test. We option for the sweet audio from 20,000 kilohertz. We can use it with the white noise, but I optionally for the first time we use it with audio suite. In the next, probably the next studies that we do, I try to realize it with white noise and audio. You can hear the house of it.
It's a little bit loud. Don't be shy from
The
your
low
ears. It's
frequencies
huge.
and the high, these loudspeakers can't play them, but we hear the middles. So this is the audio clip. It was used to measure all the frequencies and record it with the microphone. And afterwards, we got the registration from this audio suite. This was the place in the microphone and the two loudspeakers in the gym. We did it from the entrance to the place, to the room. we put the microphone in the middle, in the center of it, and the two loudspeakers in a 90-degree position between the microphone and the two loudspeakers. And we call it this was the setting of the recording. We used the top entrance of the podium to put the cables, and nobody was inside the room on the moment of the study. So there's no interference with the human body or body in the place. There was the placing of all the equipment. And this was the first room that we analyzed. As Fernando told, the main subject of this study was to see if there is any gain in the AGS frequency, because there's neurological effects on our being. And in the first in the first room, as you can see here in the graphic, there is some gain, natural gain, the effect of using the audio sweep. And it should be in a normal case, there are no normal perfect cases, should be linear as the audio sweep. It has all the same energy in all those frequencies that is doing the sweep. And when we were able to the effect with the microphone, is what the room give us back from this audio sweep. And as we can see here in the graphic of the first room, there is a gain in the audio, in the ATS frequency. There are some lowers in some frequencies, and it's getting lower as we go to the 20,000 Hz. And the same is in the clarity of the sound. The higher frequencies are getting very low, but you have a clear in the 88 Hz frequency that is the one to be analyzed. The same in the second place. As you can see, in this case, we have the opposite. In the ATS frequency, we have a lower, but in the clarity, also have a lower. So the second room doesn't have the same characteristics, the acoustic characteristics that we have in the first one. It's totally the opposite. The same as happens on the other place that we went, that we're going to see afterwards. And we're recording also the sound of Fernando playing the drums. Not to have the audio and the acoustic analysis, but we have the environment of playing some drums and flute in this first case.
E antes disso, eu só experimentar a tonalidade deste. Uma certa ressonância. Ora bem. Quando quiser. Posso?
This is the second one with the high pitch. Now we are at Carente, the second place, the second location. And the same model was applied in this system. The triangle between the microphone and the two loudspeakers in the same rooms. There was studied 2 rooms. And this is the recording on the first. In the first room, as you can see, we have in the clarity and in the frequencies that were studied. In this case, the clarity of the 80 Hertz frequency, we have a very big gain. This is the first. We did it twice. We have the same study twice. We recorded twice the same big audio reference signal. And in both cases, they give the same from the left and the right loudspeaker. And as you can see, there are some differences between the first and the second. But they both have the same curve in the same places. This is a bit lower in the frequency that we can analyze, the 70 Hertz frequency. But in some ways, it's very similar to the first room that we have in the Durango location. This is the second room. The same here. We did it with both twice the diagonal line, the switch from the left and the right speaker. And as we can see, like in the same in the Durango location, we have the same result, that the 80 Hertz frequency has a big lower, not a push up, not a gain, but it's getting lower, the frequency. It's quite strange to have in both places the same measurement. In one case we have the gain, and then in the second we don't. Probably this must be about the architecture of the place, the materials, the dimensions, anything can. In this case, in the restaurant, we did the same, afterwards, the same experience. Fernando playing the drums, one with the lower pitch and the second with the higher pitch. And we had a presence from a friend, Julia Galina. She will be here on Saturday giving a concert. She was there, and she sings in the place in 2 positions, in 2 different positions, for we have a recording, not just the drums, but a voice singing. No. Thank you. This is Fernando playing the drums. Okay. This was the first recording. This is the second drum. will be Julia Gavina singing in two different places. One in the same position where Fernando was playing the drums, and on the opposite side of the entrance. And the other one is very in the middle, very close to the microphone, but in the middle of the place.
Júlia, posso te pedir um favor?
Sim.
Então agora põe-te aqui sentado ao centro, virada de cara lá para fora.
Sentada ao centro, onde está o
Sim,
microfone.
sim.
Are morindine damu, peatala se guadi, se apute se ciftati, yafto calocero. Asprato petto naspro, vasta mahelinasi, se apute se ciftati, yafto calocero.
These three recordings were made in the first room, in the first room of Karim location. Not in the second. We didn't in the second for June because the conditions were very difficult. The place was very degraded. It wasn't a condition. This experiment we just did the audio recording and study. This is the end. Thank you.
No question.
Yes, have you thought out, and this is an important point, that's with very much this presentation and your presentation, which is excellent, the idea of a single instrument. But what happens if you have two drums, five drums? And this is a point February was always with the idea of the bluestones. What happens if you have 52 stones being pitched in it at the same time? With the near sound, it would be one of just wondering if maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 people singing, maybe 3 or 4 drummers going
at the same time.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that was
small orchestra.
So with surrounds going as well.
Yeah. Posso responder? Thank you very much, George. It's a very important question. So I forgot to tell this is a preliminary study. We also want to go to caves, but one of them is touristic, would have some problems of logistics. So it's a preliminary study. We, of course, I have 3 drums, and I must invite someone to play with me. I can play 2 drums, not even 3, but having a second drum, a third drum would be better. And it's a very good idea of having a group of singers, both flutes and things like that. And so it's
Another thing that I forgot to say, the singing is a traditional Italian singing from south of Italy. Probably Regina knew it. She was happy to hear it. And well, this, as you can see, Arquebus is fantastic. We have also fun working with this. We enjoy what we do, and we hope to contribute also for well-being, because there are some singing and group chanting. And this is group chanting has been studied by medical doctors. And for example, very briefly, I must say that there is a publication in a peer-reviewed journal where medical doctors studied a group of singers. Before singing, he collected saliva from the singers, and after half an hour of singing, he collected saliva again, and he noticed that after this group singing, the dopamine and serotonin got higher just by singing. And the singer reported, the singers reported the stronger connections between themselves. And we know that this, in the prehistory, singing in group could create social bonding, which was very important in those times for dealing in society. It's important to have strong social bonding. So as you can see, Arquebus has to do with everything, because we are immersed in the world of sounds. When we come to this world, we come with the sound, we cry. And when we die, we leave this world with a whisper. Nevertheless, it's a soft sound, nevertheless, it's a sound. And we are surrounded constantly by sound. So, and I hear noise.
Back to see if you are in danger or not. So the ears to hear the sound is very important. We keep again for a suggestion. I have to find another person because that will be. And we are. This is an ongoing study. Are there any questions to be brought up? I have one notation which I think is important to all of us, being in Europe, and in Southern Europe in particular, that the Romans and the Greeks had their acoustic perfect. Anybody goes to an amphitheatre in Greece or in the Greek Cyprus, Crete, Greece mainland, Roman amphitheatre, this in respect of how contained within the particular site with work that was within Hypergea. And again, I think Paul Devereux was talking about the Hypergea in Malta, which is also doing exactly the same thing. That's also pictorially recorded on the walls of Hypergea, which is again very interesting to think about. So, to sum up for this session,
by George. When wooden astonishing the acoustic change.
And I will add, if any of you don't know about Woodhenge, Woodhenge is a circular monument a few kilometres from Stonehenge. It's a large causeway enclosure, Neolithic. It dates, and months ago I did a 365 Woodhenge, standing in the middle of Woodhenge, and no break within the alignments of the various points where those timbers would be placed between the inside. So quite clearly, again, we are looking at a sacred space which has that ritual knowledge, the knowledge is power aspect to it. And I think that's an important point to consider. And you are really, in many respects, suggesting the same sort of thing
Yeah.
in terms of the sound escaping object. It can't escape.
Yeah.
It's contained within. Contained within. Yeah. So thank you very much for that. So can we resume? What is it?
We resume now at 2:30.
Okay, we resume at 2:30. I urge you to be here. We have a very good presentation. We'll be back shamanism and the Jews harp. Correct? Yeah. Be there, please. Too. Thank you much.
Success, we come so far. I feel we aim as on the shining star. It's standing there like no other. It's clear to see the students, experts in the community. Come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up our familia. Let's all celebrate, celebrate. Loving only together we'll thrive. Yeah. And after the year where dreams come alive. Hey, for success we come so far. I feel we aim as on the shining star. It's standing there like no other. It's clear to see the students, experts in the community. Come and participate. The celebration won't wait. Hey, hey, take it up our familia. Let's all celebrate.